introduce Mr. Bill and KJ Sawka. Give it up.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Awesome.
Good?
Now that you're here.
Okay. Notice that wasn't a rhetorical question because they can actually respond.
That's okay, yeah. They
That's
can
fine.
respond. Yeah,
We have a thing when we play live
Yeah.
that when KJ gets on the mic, he has a rule where I don't let him ask any rhetorical questions to the crowd. Like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah. They're not going to answer.
They're not going to answer, they're just going to scream. So what's the point? So anyway, what we're going to talk about today is the set that we've been playing for the last few weeks at a bunch of festivals and clubs and stuff. And we developed this because basically I was getting really bored with doing DJ sets, and I was like, fuck this, I want to like do something really crazy and like actually flesh out live electronic performance as much as possible. And KJ was the perfect person to ask really to join me in doing that, seeing as he's done a lot of it already with like Pendulum and Destroyed and stuff. So basically, yeah, we're going to talk about like why we're doing the things we're doing, how we're doing it, like just basically all the shit that is involved with this set. So I guess the most logical starting point when talking about this would be like I guess not our guidelines, but like our expectations and what exactly it was that we were trying to do to begin with, which, as I said, was to try and just make an interesting, really nutty live performance where we're both like playing a lot of the parts. And one of the biggest problems I guess we came up with at first was like, well, cool, we know what we want to do. We want to make a crazy performance. What the fuck do we do? Like, where do you start? So the first thing we did is I sent a folder of my tunes to KJ, and he sent a folder of his tunes to me. And then I believe, yeah, this is basically our Dropbox folder. This is everything that we've shared back and forward throughout the process of making this set. And if you look somewhere in here, there's probably, I don't know if we actually kept the original tracks that we shared to each other in here, but at some point we did send a folder of tracks to one another, and we did basically I looked at all his tracks and listened to them, and he listened to all mine, and then he was like, okay, we should play this from your catalog, and I was like, okay, we should play this and that from your catalog. And then we're like, okay, sick, we have all the tunes that we want to play, that's a good start. So then we rendered out stems for all of the tunes. So one of the things we really needed to do for that was to have like a standard that every tune needed to be rendered by. So if you're looking in KJ's stem folder, you can see there's like all of these stems for every tune. It has like the key. I don't know if you guys use Mixed in Key. There's this really nice program, if you don't know about it, called Mixed in Key. Basically it uses this thing called the Camelot wheel. And it's basically the circle of fifths, and then it just assigns a number to every fifth. So in theory, if you have a track that's like 1A, which correlates to A flat minor on this wheel, then you can mix it with a track that is 2A, which is correlating to E flat minor because they're a fifth apart and they'll harmonically interact nicely. So we labeled everything with like the keys in this number format and the BPMs, and then we rendered everything out as we rendered out a drum stem, a bass stem, a kick and a snare stem, and a music stem. And the reason we did that is because the drums needed to be split into, the main thing was that the drums needed to be split into kick and snares, and then everything else that wasn't a kick and a snare. And that way it gave KJ the ability to cut out the kicks and the snares and transpose them to his actual drum kit with triggers on it. And then we could just run the top kit over as a backing track, as well as have KJ playing cymbals over it. So basically, we rendered all of these stems, and then we're like, okay, cool. So how about instead of just transposing all of this shit straight to instruments, we kind of make like a giant mashup of both of our styles. So we're not just playing, you know, one of your tracks and then one of my tracks and then one of your tracks and one of my tracks. So instead, what we did is we made what were called chunks. So we have 7 chunks here, and they're all in their own project file. And basically, what we've done, if we just like, let's just go into chunk 4. What is this? KJ edit, I think, is maybe the newest one. Let's go date last opened.
Oh, you want to open that one up?
Yeah, I think this is probably the latest version. So this is the final set that you're looking at here. Well, actually, there's 2 sessions. I run a session on my computer, and KJ runs a session on his computer, which he'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, I want to talk about these chunks first. So once this is loaded, cool. So this is basically what we've done. It's not actually, well, this one may be a bad example, but basically it's not a piece of music that exists. It's such a mash between two different things, you know? Like we have this track from mine, Porn Funk. We have the drums, the bass, everything else, and the vocals. But then it mashes up with this Alicia a cappella, and basically we kind of like, we're not doing any mixing in the set, really. Instead, what we're trying to do is to, like, rather than, because I'm not a DJ really at all, so I was like, I don't really want to mix, and it also makes it really hard if I decide that I want to just mix, you know, a million tunes together, that KJ needs to know what's going on, and he can't just be like, well, shit, yeah, I totally know like every tune in your catalog off the back of my hand. So it makes more sense to just learn like these chunks or whatever. So actually,
different one.
Yeah, a better example would be this first chunk that we made. So this the one that I'm going to load up now is like the first thing that we made. We're like, okay, let's just make like 10 minutes of music as like a proof of concept. This is what it looks like. It's pretty intense. We essentially wrote like 75 minutes of new music to play tonight, which is what we're going to play tonight. So yeah, this is what it looks like, and this is just like us chopping up all of the stems that were in all of these folders back here. So you can see the stems from KJ, there's all of these songs that are all stemmed out, and then stems from Mr. Bill, there's all of these songs that are stemmed out. And then, yeah, basically we just chopped all of them together and just made like 75 minutes worth of VIPs, basically. So then what we did is rendered out all of the drum-related stuff as one stem, like after doing all of this editing. All of the basses as one stem, all of the music and stuff as one stem, all of the vocals as one stem. Then we loaded that into what we were calling a master project file, which looks like this. Which is the one we're looking at before, because basically we were trying, one of the things we had to consider from the very start is how are we going to keep the CPU as low as possible in the end, because we need to run our computers at like 64 buffer size or 32 buffer size, because we're both playing like percussive stuff. Like KJ is triggering a lot of drums on the kit, and if he has the buffer any higher than that, it feels really unnatural to play. And same with me, I have well, right now I have no controllers, but when I play my set, I have a Kai Max 49 for doing like key stuff and some effects stuff. And then I have a MIDI fighter, which I do a lot of vocal cutting things on. I don't know if you're familiar with my music, but it has like a lot of like chopped up acapellas in it. So I chop all of those on the MIDI fighter in samplers and stuff. Then I have a Roland SPDSX, which I play all sorts of shit on, like bass lines, vocal cuts, melodies, whatever. You know, steel drums, kalimbas, just whatever I can think of to transpose onto that thing. And then I use a Livid DS1, which is it's basically just like kind of like this mixer. It's just a bunch of knobs and a bunch of faders basically, and that just correlates to things in the set. So yeah, what we did is we rendered out the stems. So you can see these 4 channels here. It's like kick, snare, top kit, bass, and music. So this is chunk 1, and then so it's actually 5 because we have the kick and the snare and the top kit separated. So it's basically 2 stems for drums, 1 for bass, 1 for music, and 1 for vocals. And then you can see I've kind of cut all of these clips and I've colored them separately, and then I've named them. So this one says kit 2, which means that on my SPDSX, I need to set it to kit 2 for that section so I can play it. And then when it hits this next section, I just press a button to switch it to kit 3. And it's just kind of like a visual reminder. So I'm like, not like, oh fuck, what kit do I play now? Like, there's other ways to do that where you could probably send CC messages to your controller and have it like just changing automatically, but
That would be too boring though.
yeah, it'd be too boring.
Yeah.
Need more, like as many buttons as I can press is better. Yeah, and then there's just all these big chunks where I do effects, and then all the red sections where I play keys, then all these black sections where I play my MIDI fighter. And then we have like a whole monitoring section here where I have like a click track. I have KJ's drums coming into my in-ear monitors here, and then this is just the entire mix, so it takes the input from all, which is where all the stems are, so I can hear all of that. And then I have the levels of these 3 channels mapped to 3 knobs on my control, on my Livid DS1. So it's kind of like I have my own little monitoring mixer on my MIDI controller, so I can go like, oh, I need more click, I need less of KJ in my ears, I need like, it's fucking awesome, man. It's so good. It's like every show I play, they can have like, we don't even ask for monitors, it's great. Just use in-ears and it's so sick. And then I have a click track here that I'm sending out to KJ. And then to transpose all of the tempo changes into the set, like this, what I did was I got like a clip of silence and I put it into the, like when we were making the chunks, I put a clip of silence into the project file with the chunk, so it could like, the clip could see all of those tempo changes, and then I consolidated it and then set the clip to master instead of slave, if you know what I mean?
Did you just record?
No, I didn't record it. I just took like a little symbol or something and just turned it down to negative infinity and just looped it and dragged it out and then consolidated it.
Then you consolidated.
Yeah, and then I put it in there. You put it in this master project file and you line it up with the chunk, and then you set it to master. It puts all the tempo changes there, and then you just delete the clip, and then that's how I get all the tempo changes from the chunks into the master file. So yeah. I'll talk a bit about the racks in a little bit, but I think, KJ, do you want to talk about your session a bit?
Yeah.
Sweet.
So I want to jump back a little bit to kind of how we started. Mr. Bill and I, we have quite a bit different styles and different interests of music and different things that really excite us and different things that we hate and stuff. So starting this project was a real unique experience because of that. And like the project with Bill Gates and I and Destroyed and Pendulum, we kind of had a common goal in mind, and we hit the ground running really quick. So it took a little while for Bill and I to figure out exactly the common goal. And so that's when we started stemming everything out. I actually made an entire 60 minutes of music with both of all of our music, just like a kind of a typical DJ set. And Bill's like, oh man, I don't know. There were some variances and keys and all kinds of things that really didn't work. And then we're like, let's start experimenting with stems. And so I knew that it was going to be a big task to do that. It took like at least a month or longer to stem everything out. And we stemmed out tunes, and they were like the wrong volumes, so we had to stem them out again.
Yeah, you have to stem everything out with mastering on them, because again, you want to save processing power in the last, like, do you want this master project to be as lightweight as possible? Like if you see this master project right now, it's running at 1%, and it's fucking insane how much stuff is in here. And the reason why is because of things like that. You have to just consider every single step of the way, like what's going to chew up processing power in the final session. So you put all the mastering plugins that you have on every tune as you're rendering the stems out, and then it doesn't sound quite as good as if you were to have like separate mastering chains for every single tune in the session, but it's just unrealistic to have that many plugins running in a session like this where your buffer has to be so low.
So this is what my session looks like. It's more simple than Bill's. So basically this is like the drum computer, and Bill's is like the music computer. That's how that was our thinking at the beginning. And we tried to link them, and our goal was to link them. So the goal was we'd both press start, and both our computers would start, and I would handle all the drums, and he would handle everything else. And we're a little bit far from that in kind of a positive direction and a negative direction. But the most important thing is that it works now. And I would really stress that for anybody who's really trying to do a live project and you guys are hung up on something that's hindering the entire project. Well, fuck that. Just kind of push forward. And so you can actually get it done. Like, what's the goal? The goal is to make music. The goal is to play music. So if you're just stuck on something really stupid, like linking your two computers, well, just say fuck it and don't link your computers. So at this point where our computers are not even linked at all, I'm literally tempoing throughout the set because we just couldn't get the freaking thing to work. But there's a lot of other really cool stuff that we do besides that. So sometimes you just have to say fuck it for sure. So this is how I started. I started with the drum backing track. So this is really crucial for me. The set is moving along. This is like exactly what Bill's set looks like, chunk 1 through 7, except these are just the drum tracks. And so I have a drum backing track, and this is all the stuff that I don't play. This is all the stuff that's on the track. And this drum play mute is the exact stuff that I play. All these kicks and snares. It's basically the kick and snare part. Like Bill was talking about, the top kit is, sometimes it's really difficult to play every single nuance and every single thing perfectly with pads and stuff. It just doesn't translate very well. It just sounds different. Like with Pendulum and Destroyed, I do a lot more like exact playing, the exact hi-hats, the exact percussion parts and things, and there's a lot less backing track. We decided that Bill is really audio oriented, and there's a lot of fades and a lot of glitchy sounds and stuff, and that stuff is pretty complex to play on the kit. So I was playing everything, and we were like, God, that just sounds like shit. It sounds sloppy. You know, sometimes if the programming really isn't freaking perfect, you can a seasoned drummer can literally sound like a freaking 2-year-old trying to play the kit, and I really try to express that with all MIDI instruments. You know, you could be the sickest keyboard player in the world, but if you have just a bunch of sounds all at 0 velocity, you know, or everything's maxed out and none of the sounds go together, well, it's going to sound like shit. It doesn't matter how good of a player you are. So the programming aspect is just as important as the playing aspect. But I'm also an advocate of if the programming is really, really, really done right, a 2-year-old can actually make it sound good. So you can either sound like a 2-year-old in a good way or a bad way, I guess. So this is kind of a real basic setup here with the racks. I literally went from chunk 1, chunk 2, chunk 3, all the way to chunk 7, and each drum beat, like this drum beat, let's see here. So that's all the stuff that I play. And I put it on chunk 1, and so here's the intro kick. So basically, in one drum rack, there's 16, well, visually you can see 16 pads at a time. So that was each kit. So I just made 8 kits in each rack. So as I go up, there's different kits. And I just stuck a pitch plug-in on there. And inside the dummy clip, right when the next kit comes in, I think it's probably right here, the pitch plug-in is automated to 12 or to 16 or whatever. And then it changes up to the next kit. So pretty simple, but it's pretty intense because I just kept on building and building and building. And so this has, well, some of these are blank, but you know, if there was 8 here, that would be 64 different songs. So the likelihood of us programming 64 different songs in this set is pretty likely just with just one single instrument rack. So I'll kind of get into more detail about that, but that's kind of the basis of mine.
Yeah, so basically what's happening is our computers, we were trying to sync them, but we weren't trying to sync them so both of our computers could be in time, like so perfectly that you couldn't tell the difference in audio. It's like, and like for instance, if I was playing a kick that was just like deuce, 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 deuce on my computer, and KJ was playing a kick on his computer that was also just doing the exact same thing, and we tried to sync them and play them at the same time, it's never perfect. It sounds like brr, 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 and it's like they're always slightly out. Either my computer's faster or his computer's like lagging or being completely out of time. So what we do is, or what we're trying to do to sync our computers was literally just to have his program change messages changing at roughly the right times. So, you know, when we play our first song, it's like one kit, like there's a bunch of drum sounds that correlate to his kit, and then as the second song comes by, pitch plugin on his computer just changes, and therefore all the sounds on his kit change. So we weren't actually trying to get it to be so perfect that we could actually have the audio so perfectly in time or anything. So basically, like most of the sound is just playing off my computer, and the stuff that's playing off KJ's computer is being triggered in real time. So we tried a fucking lot of ways to quantize our computers. We tried this thing called live sync, which was actually working really well for a few days, and then it just stopped working, no idea why. Then we started using this J74 Audio NetTools thing. These are both Max for Live plugins. That didn't work either.
They're great plugins.
They're great plugins, but they just weren't doing what we wanted. Like one of them, because basically what you want, or what we want, seeing as we're playing in arrangement view like this, we want two things. We want both computers to be at the same tempo, and we want both computers to have the same song position. That's all we want.
Because we're bouncing around inside the arrangement.
Right. So actually, that's a good point. The way we're playing the chunks is like, tonight if we're like, we'll talk just before we go on stage. We'll be like, okay, which chunk do you want to start off with? He might be like chunk 6. So I'm like, sweet, hit 6 on my keyboard and press play, and that's it. Like you can see now, it's playing chunk 6. Also, yeah, it starts like the chunk starts a little bit early, so we hear in areas some click, and then it goes. The green was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we go. And then after we finish playing chunk 6, I might go, okay, cool, let's play chunk 2 now, and just hit 2 and then spacebar. So it's like when we're jumping around like that, trying to keep the computers in sync to jump around so far, it was just having a lot of issues. We tried a bunch of shit. We tried just Etherneting straight from one computer to the other and just using external sync in Ableton. We tried using MIDI just straight from one sound card to the other. And that would be fine if we didn't have a session longer than 1,024 bars. This is the max song position. MIDI, yeah, there's a limitation with MIDI. The max song position it can do is up to 1,024 bars. So we'd play the set. As long as everything occurred before bar 1,024, it was fine. It was so solid. Except as soon as it went past there, it just like wouldn't do it. Instead,
go back to 1.
Yeah, instead what it would do at bar 1,024, it would go back to 1 on his computer. Yeah. So it's like it would just keep playing. Yeah. So then we had this other idea where, what if we just like put every chunk vertically, and therefore, we were only ever using like the first 200 bars of the set, or even if not even that. But then that was just going to be a pain in the ass to like switch between tracks and stuff. So. Yeah, so basically in the end we didn't sync our computers, and now we're just tap tempoing and nudging. Link only works in this view, in session view.
All right.
Yeah, it doesn't tell song position, it just tells BPM.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you try a hardware MIDI repeater at all?
Yeah, we tried the MIDI solutions thing. Yeah, we tried everything. we literally like were at KJ's studio for like a week before playing like the biggest festival I've ever played in my life. It was like we were prepping for a fucking 5,000 person show basically, and three out of the 5 days that we had, we were just pulling our hair out trying to figure out syncing. And then in the end we were just like KJ said, in the end we were just like, fuck it, like we're not syncing anymore. And just had to like start rehearsing because we had a big ass show to play. So yeah, I've got a bunch of racks here that I got from Bill Gates that I'm using on the Livid DS1 as well. And here's one thing I really want to talk about. One thing that I did in my racks that KJ's not doing in his, which I thought was like really clever, and I gave myself a little pat on the back, was where is it? Let me find it. Here we go. This stuff. So this all correlates to a Roland SPDSX, which I play with sticks.
And from this project, did you just figured this out, right?
Right, I just figured this out.
You normally don't do this.
I normally don't do this. I literally just figured this out to play live, like in this project alone. So hold on, let me find so this section does it. Okay, so you see here, I have the new simpler, and I have it set to slicing mode. So, and every single one of these slices correlates basically to a C major scale or a chromatic scale on the keyboard. So what I've done is I've put a randomizer before a scale plugin, and then before the simpler. So every time I hit these pads, it's never the same. So it's like, you can see it like selecting the different samples. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. So it just gives the playing some dynamics without like, because obviously I don't have like 1,000 fucking pads to like put, little intricate different hits on every single pad. So instead I just kind of have it randomized, which I thought was really cool.
So that's what I was talking about. Literally, a 2-year-old could go over here and hit that button,
Absolutely.
and it would probably sound good.
Yeah, so it's like here I'd be playing a bass line. but I'm just going and that kind of just all sounds really cool, even though I'm not really doing anything that interesting. Yeah, so I think so that's a really interesting point as well. Is like because so much of the stuff that's happening in our music is like absolutely not traditional sound. It's all like, you know, crazy fucking transformer basses and like exponential rhythm, fucking sounds like doors creaking and fucking jets landing and just all sorts of weird shit. Like how do you transpose that to an instrument? It's like we're not used to, like we're not set up for that shit. We're set up to watching people playing fucking lutes and shit. And it's like, you know, if there was a lute sound in my track and I had a MIDI lute, then I would just, you know, transpose that to the lute and that would make total sense in my mind, right? But it's like, how do you transpose a bass line, like a dubstep bass line, to a pad? It's like we're used to hearing basses played like a guitar or on a keyboard or something like that. So it's kind of interesting, I feel like, in that way. It's a little bit easier, I feel like, for KJ because he's just transposing drums to a drum kit, which makes sense. But yeah, it's kind of tricky when you're trying to treat like a percussive instrument as a bass, or treat a percussive instrument as like something where you're chopping vocals up or something weird like that, you know.
Gotta move. You use your imagination.
You've got to use your imagination. You've got to be like, now the percussive instrument is a sample of a guy saying hi. You know, something weird like that. So yeah, I have 3 channels here. The red one is my keyboard, which just has an operator in it. I really need to make more key patches because I'm sick of just playing the same sound. And then it has like a reverb after it, so I can like turn a knob and it just like takes a snapshot of what I just played and just holds it in a buffer. And then I can just keep looping it. And then there's just like a 1-knob filter. I don't know if you guys know what they are, but basically it's a crazy rack that looks like this, and you just have 1 knob. When you turn it up, it's a high pass, and when you turn it down, it's a low pass. It's pretty easy to set up. And then yeah, the SPDSX channel, like we said, it's just all racks, and then the MIDI fighter channel is again mostly just racks, but just with like lots of little vocal cuts in there, so I can play them. Actually, can I borrow your MIDI fighter for a sec? So what I've done here is you can see I've got MIDI fighter slot 2, and then a little note that says "Go nuts." So
these notes are crucial in your sets.
very crucial. It's like,
otherwise, you'll just be staring
right,
the crowd
if it didn't
deer in
say
headlights.
Go nuts, I would just, you know what I'd do.
Like, oh yeah, I forgot to play for the last 5 minutes.
So, yeah, the way I've set these racks up is you can see that there's just basically 4 sets of 16 in this rack, and they correlate to these 4 buttons. So, let's see, that's not working. Hold on. Oh, it's doing that sketchy thing. Here we go. We might be in business. And also, every MIDI channel is just set to accept MIDI from its respective controller. Right, putting that down. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. No, you don't have to. Oh, actually, it's just not showing up. You don't have to actually arm it. It's if you set it to input monitoring, it works. I'm just not getting it for some reason. It's not showing up for some reason. It's weird.
I have a quick stupid question. Are you playing an electronic drum kit live?
I'm playing a hybrid kit.
Yeah.
So I have electronic triggers on all the acoustic drums, and I have like electronic toms and electronic hi-hat. So in the session here, these drum racks, this is connected to the electronic kick, but I just have an acoustic kick like this one. I have an acoustic snare like this one, and I have little triggers on it. They're called acoustic drum triggers. Turns any drum or anything into anything to trigger any sound. And so, yeah, I have toms, cymbals, kicks, snares. And then inside the rack, I have my live drums. I think this is one of the issues that was really screwing everything up with our sync, was my session was starting to get a little bulky because of all these live inputs. I have overhead mics, I have a kick, a front, a kick beater, snare mic, a snare 1 under, snare 2 mic, and snare under. So that's 8 mics on the kit. And yeah, you don't have to record and enable it like that. You just select that monitor input, and that enables the track. and I think that lowers the CPU.
So is there a front of house mix on the drums, or you're sub-mixing all the drum sound in live?
We are submixing everything to just a little on-stage mixer and giving the sound guy
Stereo
left and right. Yeah,
Cool.
because my experience, I really don't want anybody that, especially don't know, mixing my drums because
And you have in-ears?
they're gonna mix it like shit. What's that?
And you use in-ear monitors?
We use in-ear monitors, yeah. I'm sure like a lot of sound engineers are gonna mix it great. It's gonna sound awesome for the club. But every time I do that, somebody's like, hey, turn up the music, or I can't hear your drums, and I'm like, I'm playing the drums. You know, especially when I'm playing my electronic kicks and snares, they're like, hey, turn up the acoustic drums, or turn up your drums. I'm like, do you hear the kick? They're like, yeah. I'm like, that's my kick. It's my drum. Like, so we just said, fuck that completely and just give them the stereo out. And hey, if you can't hear something, just turn the whole mix up and you'll probably be able to hear it.
Pretty much.
So since you guys use in-ears when you're going between your chunks, how do you communicate with each other? Do you have hand signals or do you?
We do it before, like the first big rave that we played that was 5,000 people. We wrote on a paper plate.
Yeah.
We're like 1, 8, 7, 6. There's literally like lottery numbers, and that was our set.
Cool.
And
Yeah,
it's-
like correlated to which chunk we were playing.
Yeah.
Basically our set list every day just looks like lottery numbers. It's just
Looks like a lottery,
It's like
yeah.
chunk 6, chunk 4, chunk 7, chunk 8.
We've got a chunk that has like a
This
nice
session
intro.
is tanking.
Start
I'm just,
playing them as
I'm just
lottery.
gonna restart my
What's that?
computer.
Start playing lottery with those numbers, yeah? Maybe
I think that's a good idea, yeah. I mean, we definitely communicate on stage. He's
Yeah.
restarting his computer because freaking all technology fucking sucks. Anyways, but that's why we're here. We're trying to learn about how it can not suck so bad. But, you know, like, as much shit that we do, that Bill and I do, and as much production and live shows and things, we still run into all the same problems that everyone else runs into. They don't go away. You just got to figure out how to freaking go around them or solve them. But it doesn't matter how fast your computer is. You know, you're always going to run into CPU issues. And so that's one big thing that I try to do with all my projects is really cut down the CPU. Like you can see here, here's a big one. All these stop buttons are gone. And you just like right click it and make them go away. But if you have a lot of these cells, all those stop buttons really add up to the CPU. So that was one thing like in our destroyed set that we realized that knocked off like, I don't know, 2%. And every little percentage adds up. Like Bill was saying, our buffer is really low. This is 64. If I crank it up to 128, it's really hard to play the drums. And it's really hard to play the keyboards or anything because you just have latency, especially like a vocalist, you know, like you're recording a vocalist in your studio and they're like, oh, I can hear latency. And then if like you're running the vocalist through your huge session that's like maxed out, you're like, shit, how are we supposed to record vocals? You know, and that's when the CPU issue really comes into play. Forget what I was talking about. But latency, yeah. So I made all these dummy clips, and dummy clips, they're slightly different in Ableton 9. A lot of my sessions I still use Ableton 8 because you can kind of build inside this area here. In Ableton 9, it's definitely set up more to build right here on the timeline. And so the purpose of the dummy clip is for everything to be automated and change automatically. So like right here, when that's going to right here, it changes my drum kit automatically. Because there's 64 drum kits, and that really sucked to constantly change the drum clicks or the drum whatevers by hand all the time. So most of my other projects that we don't have live drums going in, we have like big, huge, freaking. We have like the whole production. Like Pendulum, there's I don't know 16 drum mics, and it's going to our monitor engineer, and it's going to front house, and he's mixing it really low, and everything's going sidechain and everything, and all we're doing is MIDI stuff. With this project, it's all like just inclusive, and so I really got to utilize some of the miking techniques and various fun, just real basic audio things that with Ableton, it's a lot cooler using Ableton to mix your drums as opposed to like an outboard mixer because of sidechain, of graphic EQs, gates. Everything is gated really heavy. Like the gate, most of these gates, well, in my other session, it's like way up there at like -20, which cuts off really fast. And otherwise, it's going to be a shit ton of feedback, and it's going to sound horrible. And the microphones going into the overheads are condensers, so it's going to be a really nasty, sharp feedback. You got it running.
I got it
working.
Yeah. wiki. Yeah. So basically, like what I was saying before is, yeah, I have 2 racks in here so far, with a total of only 5 kits, but I'm going to build a lot more actually in the future. Actually, no, sorry. Yeah. No, yeah, that's correct. So basically, these 4 buttons on the front of the MIDI fighter, they kind of like select a different 16 CC messages. So this, if I have like this first button selected, it's like 1 kit of vocals. And then if I select button 2, it's a different set. And then if I select 3. And then depending on like the track that I'm in, can really depend on which kit I'm playing. So that's why I have these notes to say like go to MIDI fighter slot 2, which would be this one. Actually, I usually have it set up like that, and then I have like something under it to hold it like that so people can see what I'm playing. I don't use this function, like it has a fucking accelerometer in it that really does not work, so I don't use that. It's just sketchy. Like you'll put it to something and then start turning it and it'll start messing the parameter, and then the next minute it's just like lol, just like max value, and it just sounds fucking terrible.
Lol.
But yeah, so basically this is the kind of shit that I'm doing in a lot of sections. Like that sort of shit. Thank you. And then there's like a section over here, like directly after I do that, where I basically just stop, and then I'm like, there you go. And then he does this fucking insane drum bit. Like it sounds like this. It sounds all fucked up and unmixed, but if you we have these tracks muted actually when that's happening, so it just sounds like this. And then in this section, KJ is just doing insane drum shit. So it's kind of like we do a lot of stuff like that through the set, and that's kind of why we need these like clip markers to show us what to do, because it's a long set and it's really hard to remember what to do at any given time. Yeah.
We have little cues in our ears too.
It's true, we do. We have cues in our ears.
I just sped up my voice. I just said 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's got a little girl
we
talking
built
to us.
a rack. Yeah, we built a rack, and you can see in this rack there's a clip that says 1, 2, 3. Click 1, 2, 3, whatever. So what we do is like, yeah, this whole click track just has like little sections that just say 1, 2, 3, 4 at any point. So I can actually show you. It's like we'll have a click that's just running like this. I have to turn on this.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And like that's what we're hearing in our ears. So when we hear 1, 2, 3, 4, we're like, okay, something important's gonna happen.
Something's gonna happen.
So we can't fuck it up.
Either you stop or you start. It's one or the other.
It's one of the, yeah, it's either a start point or a stop point, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a cool thing. Yeah, it's good, man, it really helps. So yeah, at the moment, that's basically where the set is. Yeah, as KJ said, we're not sending anything to a front of house engineer, we're just mixing everything on stage. And pretty much we have everything preset. If my Motu sound card is set at 0 dB, and I think your Focusrite, whatever it is, set to 0, and we just send them both into the mixer, it should sound exactly how we had it in the studio. And we just turn every fader on the mixer up to 0, and it should sound exactly how we want it. But sometimes you'll find in venues that they'll just have a weird resonance or something. like we've been into a few venues where they just, you know, have this massive 100 hertz resonance or a massive 300 hertz resonance, so the fucking snare just jumps right out or the kick jumps right out, and then we just basically need to almost pull it right out of the entire front of house. Especially in the smaller venues, like if we played in here, we'd barely be sending any of KJ's sound through the front of house apart from the electronic drums, but none of the acoustics really, because they're just so loud for small venues. And I think it's both good and bad. Like it's good because you're pushing so much sound pressure off the stage with all the cymbals and the snares and stuff that I think it glues the audience to the stage more than if you're just kind of like a DJ standing there playing sound through a big ass sound system. And it kind of becomes more like, not interactive, but more like, I feel like you connect with the stage more when you're actually physically pushing fucking sound pressure off it rather than just a sound system doing that.
You're pushing shit with your fingers.
I'm pushing shit with my fingers.
Yeah.
That's true, I am.
And if he's pushing 300 hertz, he's literally pushing shit. You want to put that shit right down.
I did. So that's basically all I can really think of to talk about with the creation of the set and what we wanted to do and how we're actually playing it and where it stands right now. I guess I could talk about the future of it. Like in the future, we want to make this set bigger. It's pretty modular. We can just make more chunks and then add them into the session and then just make more racks to play and all that sort of stuff. And if it gets too big, then we'll just split it over 2 sessions and halfway through the show have like an interlude or some shit. So yeah, it's pretty modular and like we can build on this pretty easily. I think when I go home, I'm going to make more racks even just for the 7 chunks that we have here because I don't actually feel like I'm doing enough on stage yet. I want at any point in time in the set, well actually at every point in time in the set, I never want to not be doing something. Like I always want to be playing a part. So by the way, whenever you see these markers turn on, the channels turn off. So basically what we're doing is like removing a part that then will get played. Which is cool, and yeah, basically the idea is that eventually throughout the entire set, I want to never not have, like if I fucking just die or something, there'll always be a part missing in every part of the set. It makes me feel important. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, does anyone have questions? I feel like we've pretty much covered it. Yeah?
Yeah, you talked about how you did your tempo automation using the cymbal clip. Could you like maybe set up and show you did it from scratch?
How I did it?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So I won't mess with that session. I'll do it in another session. It's actually really easy. But yeah, you just kind of need to like it's really easy, but you need to do it in a very specific order of operations because if you don't, it just fucks it up. And you just end up destroying everything.
I'm still thinking about if you died on stage, what would happen?
Oh, fuck, I don't know, but the set would go on.
The set would go on to a certain point and then it would stop.
It's true, we could only get to 1 chunk done. So here, I turn the clip down to negative infinity. It's just a clap sample. You can use any sample. And then I loop it, and I drag, well actually before I do this, let's actually make some tempo automation. So, let's go song tempo. I'm just gonna draw in a bunch of shit.
So this is something fun that I learned from Bill.
So let's say that's our tempo automation.
I didn't even know how to do this.
Yeah. And then if we drag this clip out like this, let's just say...
Have you ever done this before our session?
No, this is the first time I was like, shit, I need to figure out how to do this, and then I figured it out.
Bill's really good at that.
So basically, you can see the clip here. It's just like it's a single clip that just loops over and over again. But now if I consolidate it, you'll see what happens is it's introduced all of these warp markers down here. And these warp markers, if you zoom right in, are where that's where the tempo changes. So if I click on this warp marker here, so I've selected that warp marker now, and you can see that the segment BPM says 105. Then if I select this next warp marker here, you can see that the segment BPM now says 197, So then what I do is I just cut this clip, then I go, here's a new session, delete these temporary files, just load this into a new channel, and I just call the channel, I don't know, whatever, tempo something. Yeah, so then if we look at the master channel, there'll be nothing. It'll just be, go song tempo, you can see it's just nothing.
This is the really important bit right here.
This is the really important bit. Where it says slave, you now want to make that a master, and then you can see it just does that. It just like loads the tempo in, and then basically, you can just unwarp the clip then, and then now it's unwarped. Now the tempo's in there.
So you never have to re-automate all your freaking tempo like in a
Yeah.
DJ set or whatever.
Which is really fucking annoying.
I was
Like,
writing
you
down
got-
numbers, and then he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I got a better way to do it."
So
Yeah.
was there a step from the old session where you dropped the clip into your library to save your library? How did you get the clip from the previous set?
Oh, you just like I'll just go into one chunk and then like cut the clip, and then go into the other chunk and then just paste the clip.
Oh, cut, like you're
Like
saving
that.
it to your clipboard.
Yeah, exactly.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And then how does
Like,
how does the
like
tempo
copy.
change? How does the tempo change get down into the master automation lane?
Because you're running it as a master, like
Yeah.
you're running the clip as a.
Oh, and then it just shows up as automation down below.
Yeah.
Right, but,
Yeah.
well, actually, what's happening is the master tempo is not what's then controlling the tempo. What's controlling the tempo is the clip itself and the warp points in the clip that have a BPMs assigned to them because you've consolidated it in a session that has tempo changes.
That is a brilliant workflow.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it really is.
I was pretty impressed when I figured it out.
So just so you guys know, you could take, like I can highlight all this stuff, copy it, close the session. If I close live completely, it won't copy it. But if I just close the session, open up a new session, like new right here, and then you can paste it into that new session. So, but if you quit live, it won't do it. You just gotta close
Yeah,
live,
but
open
it,
up a new session.
It just sits in your RAM
Yeah.
until you quit live, basically, because it's in live's RAM, obviously. Yeah. Is there any other questions? Yeah.
Speaking of RAM, what do you guys use for your
I think my computer's slightly better. I have it's 2.3 gigahertz Intel Core i7, 16 gigs RAM. It's probably about the same.
Your processor's 2.3, you said?
2.3.
That's funny. Mine's 2.7.
But is it a Retina display though? Because some of that will be going to your if you don't have a beastie graphics.
I
card,
hate
you never
Retina
use it.
display. This is the last computer before Retina. I didn't.
That's the one I have.
Yeah, I didn't want to get Retina.
You swap the CD drive for another hard drive?
No, but that's a really good idea. You can swap your CD drive for a hard drive. So once the Retina came out, then they told the CD player to fuck off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No CD players anymore. It's all SD cards and future technology.
They were having issues with the Retina right when they first came out, and that was one of the reasons why I got this. And obviously they fixed the Retina, and now it's the only thing you can
I've
get.
had no problems with it, but I used to have one of those too, and I didn't really have any problems.
You know what it was?
with
It was the power cable, because it was a brand new power deal. And did you see that it used to have a little stupid adapter thing on this thing? That you had to have a little Retina adapter on it, like when it first came out.
Basically, your computer is constantly caching shit. So like, you could just go to a website and like KJ said, you don't know you're downloading these files, but what's happening is like, let's say you go to Facebook. Awesome, the startup disk appears to be okay. That's good news. I have a show tonight.
My computer at home was taking a shit, and it's like
Yeah.
my main computer, right in the middle of our writing session, and I'm like, uh-oh, I don't even know what's going on. It's never done this before, and you're like, oh fuck, dude,
Ran
just
this and it was
download on it.
perfect.
And
Yeah,
it's
basically like you go to
cleared
let's
everything.
say you go to a ton of websites, and all of those websites download a couple of files so that the next time you go to the website it loads faster, which is smart. It's like that's what it should be doing. But every now and then when you do that shit too much, and emails as well, if you use your mail browser in Mac OS, it stores all of those on your computer somewhere, and this thing just cleans all of it out, basically makes your computer brand new again.
You think it's better to delete like your mail account and just use the internet mail account? Obviously, it will
I just use Gmail. I don't use an actual.
Macmail
Yeah.
bogs you down.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I don't use an actual client. I just use Gmail, and then I have actually because I have my own website and stuff, and then I have all of my web emails. Actually, you can run them through Gmail as well, so you can just use Gmail as your client.
Everyone's got their own preference.
I resisted giving up the client really bad, but life is better here without it.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Get rid of it.
I can't stand like iTunes and freaking Mac Mail and all that bullshit. God, that fucking drives me crazy. It never works for me. I'm literally like completely freaking illiterate to some really basic things on a computer that it doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
What is the
Are we
photo
all?
program that comes with Mac is still just terrible. It's like they can't figure out iPhoto.
iPhoto,
It's
yeah.
still just like a total piece of shit.
I'll never use
Yeah,
it.
I got this
It's
wicked
like,
track
aren't you
started in
like
GarageBand.
Apple? You guys can figure out a photo viewing program?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone? Yeah.
So does that mean all your other applications are streamlined and you don't have any other apps on there or something?
No, I do. I have a lot of apps on here actually. You can go through and check them out. Mostly, yeah. This ARC2 measurement thing, it's like, there's just audio related shit on here just in case I need to do shit. But yeah, for the most part, it's pretty streamlined. It's like Ableton, Dropbox, it's pretty much all the heavyweight shit that's on there. Minecraft, of course.
You wouldn't recommend having like one of the video editing software, video, other applications that could impede on the hard drive performance?
Sorry, say that again?
Well, I mean, would you recommend having like an absolutely dedicated computer for just audio?
I think so. I mean, KJ definitely does, but it's a little bit more, there's more riding on his performances than mine. Like, you know, if he's doing a pendulum show or destroyed show, then you absolutely can't like fuck around. You need to make sure that your computer's absolutely going to work for the show. So it's a bit more important, I would say, for him. But having said that, I've never really had any issues in the last 5 years with any computers that I've had. If I'm just like using them fairly rarely and mostly using my desktop at home. Actually, I had to get...
ScreenFlow is an easy one.
ScreenFlow is an easy one. I had to get this program when I was living in Australia. SMC fan control. It just cranks your fans as hard as they can go because it's just so fucking hot there.
That's the reason.
Yeah, that's the reason. I literally needed to get it to just use my computer in Australia.
Do you use a timeline backup then, or do you backup?
I don't know. What I do is I back up all my project files in Dropbox, and then if this whole computer just shit itself, I could do a reinstall or acquire another computer and then just get Dropbox and download it. The session that I would need to download, like let's say hypothetical my computer just died right now, touch wood that it doesn't, and I needed to play a show tonight, I could probably locate a computer and then I would just need to resync this Dropbox folder, which is only 62 gigabytes, which is the session that we're playing.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's huge, yeah. There's so many stems in it, that's why. Yeah. Yeah, there's just like so many clips in racks and stuff like that.
So can I ask you a question about rendering out your stems from the individual tunes?
Uh-huh.
Do you, I get this question a lot, people ask, I know you said you master your stems as much as you can, so does that mean you preserve the mix levels, or are you normalizing all the stems?
They're all normalized, I'll show you. So here, let's go to say, shit, I don't know. Let's go to this tune. So you drag them in, then you hold Command, and then that just drops them below each other. So you can see they're all basically normalized to 0, and if I play them at this volume, it sounds terrible. It's like, it doesn't sound terrible, but it's clipping.
It's going to be at least +6 or so.
Yeah, so then you basically just turn all of these down. But then what we would do, yeah, is like cut all of the shit together, like in those chunk session files that I showed you before. Then we just put a limiter on the output, get it back so it was kind of just tapping 0, and then render them out again as like drums, bass, stems. So we just had 4 stems per chunk rather than
sum them down.
right, exactly. Try and sum as much as possible, and yeah. So if you turn it down to -6, it sounds pretty decent though, I think. Yeah, it's clipping and that's fine. Yeah, so it sounds okay. I feel like if you just have your mastering stuff on them, it's better than having a computer tanked down because you've got so many mastering plugins. Yeah, did you have a question?
Yeah, when you say normalizing, do you mean like when you're exporting the normalize function in Ableton, or?
No, I don't mean that. I actually have a limiter on it, so it's actually compressing it. Yeah, if it was normalizing, it probably just wouldn't have enough like overall volume. It'd probably just, there'd be some stupid peak in there just fucking up the program.
If you normalize these stems one at a time, it would totally fuck the mix completely.
Yeah.
Like whatever
definitely.
mix fader settings you have in previous, that was kind of what I was wondering.
Yeah, you really just need to like put your mastering plugins on the master and then just render your stems out all through that, and then they generally come out pretty decent. But it's just kind of like a necessary evil. I'd prefer to have like different mastering plugins for every tune in the set for sure, but it's just like when you consider the CPU, it's just not really possible.
On the note of the CPU level management, after you've rendered these out, since you're playing them at their native tempo, do you have them warped at all, or are they warped on beats mode?
I don't actually think they're warped at all, because once you have that tempo track underneath it, it's like it just puts it all on the grid exactly where it needs to be. So actually, yeah, I'm pretty sure we're playing it all unwarped, but we'll check.
They're all unwarped.
I think
Yeah.
they are, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
super cool. That probably keeps your buffer quite a bit lower as
Yeah,
well.
we can run this shit pretty low and still be on like 5%.
Nice.
Yeah, we can have it at about, my computer runs between 5 and 10%, and we have it running at like 64 buffer.
Wow, that's fucking amazing, huh?
Yeah. We just had to consider it like every step of the way, like what we can do to just keep cutting CPU things out, and just make it as lightweight as possible, basically.
Amazing.
Try and use Ableton native stuff over third-party stuff whenever you can, and all that sort of stuff.
5 to 10% at 64 samples with hundreds of, with 64 gigabyte set full of stems.
Yeah, they're all unwarped.
Cool.
Yeah, so yeah, here we can go to audio and make this 64. Obviously it wouldn't be running off core audio either. It's running off my Moto, which I'm not sure makes that much of a difference, honestly. Core audio seems pretty stable.
And when you're doing live MIDI instruments, a lot of the different changes that you can do with adjusting the different latency things inside the track latency or the MIDI preference latency and all that stuff, none of it really matters because it's only going to affect stuff that's already inside the session. It's not going to affect a live MIDI input.
Right?
It's for playback.
It's for playback input. But yeah, see, I'm on 64 and I'm playing it now, and it's like 13%, which is fine. It's when you start to hit up to like 20+% that it starts to, you feel it in your controllers a lot, and you start to hear like clicking and shit.
Well, one thing that we ran into at, let's see here, at 64, was when we had like a big sub hit that went down, and then the tempo went down or up. We had a nasty buffer, that like clicking sound.
Yeah, it was because of like the mixture, I think, of the tempo change, and I don't know what, I think it was just the tempo change. Like I had, because one thing is when you do those tempo clip things, it kind of adds a shitload of points like this, instead of just making a smooth ramp.
Sure.
Because it does it based on warp markers, right? So it just doesn't do it smoothly. Which I actually, in theory, think it doesn't matter. Like I think, it matters in the sense that that every single one of those points will be eating up the tiniest little bit of CPU, and if you have enough of them, then it's going to make a big difference. But actually, I think that what you're seeing there is a more accurate representation of how the smooth ramping works anyway. Like even if you have a smooth ramp, I think that is what it's doing. It just like looks visually different.
It's only straight lines and right angles anyway.
Right, you can't, like when it's in bits and stuff, it can't possibly be smooth. So.
Right. I suppose that those tempo changes, having your clips unwarped, is also really helping you with the CPU load, because if you had all those tempo changes and your audio was warped, it would be fucking you up really bad.
Yeah, nothing's warped, it looks like. It's all unwarped.
Brilliant.
So did you have a question?
Yeah, what kind of synths are you playing? Are you playing these parts live? Are you using, what are some of your favorite synths?
I'm just using Operator in this session. In the future, I might start to bring my like Mother 32 or something on the road and use some hardware or do something like that, which I think would be cool. We definitely want to build this set up more and make it more interesting to watch and more interesting for us to play and make it sound better and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, at this point where we literally were just like grinding super hard for like 3 months to just even get to this point,
You have no hardware?
I just have one, just a Mother 32.
Oh.
Yeah, but yeah, at this point we just kind of had to get something done because the tour got booked like before we finished making the set. So we had a deadline, like a real deadline, where we were like, okay, shit, we need to be finished by March 12th because that's our first show. So we just had to, like, I think we started building the set like early January or late December or something. So yeah, it was kind of cool. Did you have a question as well?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your creative process, how you merge your two styles together and how those decisions get made, what gets kept, what gets cut.
So generally what happens is KJ will start the session because he has like I guess a better sense of like keeping stuff more high energy than me. Whereas I'll always try to like make stuff really technical and weird and go into all these slumps and troughs and shit. And he'll just like make stuff that's just like, you know, build, drop, which is like with the style of music that we write, actually doesn't even sound that generic, even though you're using a very generic structure, because all of the music is so weird anyway. Then after he does that, he'll send the session to me, and I'll be like, okay, I want to edit all these things and change out all these drum samples and like make it sound all different and stuff, and add third-party synths and like add chord progressions under it, so it's like not a so it's using a melody from one of his tunes with like a chord progression of one of my tunes, and then a new soft synth melody I made or something, and then I'll send it back to KJ, and he'll kind of go like, yes, I like that, yes, I like that, that bit kind of, I don't know, like, and we'll just kind of go back and forth with it until we have like a chunk that we're both like, yep, that'll work really well for both of us. Like, I'm happy with it, he's happy with it. It sounds like it'll go good in a club or festival or whatever dance floor setting. And then, yeah, once we've agreed on that, that's when we'll render it out and put it in the master session, and then start transposing our respective parts to their respective instruments.
There was a couple of chunks where, so I made the chunk and I sent it to Bill, and with all of the proper stems of each tune, and I'm like, I think this sounds pretty good. It has a lot of energy and stuff, and let's work on this. And then he's like, okay, sweet, I'll work on this. And literally like 2 hours later, he sends it back, and the entire like 12-minute segment of music with like 16 different songs, like in 10 minutes, sounded nothing like I sent him. And it was really cool. I was like, is this even the same chunk that I sent you? Like, drums were different, freaking keyboards were like, the melody, it's just, he just like completely remade everything. And I was like, cool, okay, like I really had to pull myself out of being in love with the actual original track and say, hey, this still is, actually, this is just a new piece of music, like this whole thing. And that was when we really started gelling, was we were like, fuck, this is kind of cool. And it was nothing like we actually thought it was going to be whatsoever. It was totally different. And that's actually kind of like, I don't know, that's what we do. It's like we're yin and yang almost when we started off, and now we're really gelling it all. When we first started off, he's like, okay, your tunes are a little more high energy than mine. Mine are more technical. Maybe we can play some of yours, and then like for the breakdowns, we can do mine. And then we're like, fucking, that idea sucks, And it did suck, Oh, the breakdowns, have Bill's music, and then the high energy stuff where you can dance, use mine. Like, that's retarded.
Yeah.
And then so this is one of the only ways that I really think that it worked. Which is like you said, it took forever to do, but we kind of started getting it down. We were using Dropbox really heavy, and at one point our freaking Dropbox, our shared folder, just failed us completely. We don't know why, so we had to start a new one.
We also tanked. We also completely tanked like 6 email threads. Like, there's a limit in Gmail to how many emails you can send back and forth. We reached it like multiple times, yeah. Just by like saying like, oh, I like this, and I don't like that, and then he'd be like, oh yeah, blah, 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 and I'd be like, blah, blah, blah. And then we like did it enough times that the fucking email thread wouldn't even open anymore in a browser. Like, yeah, you couldn't even open it in a browser, and we did it like multiple times. just in creating this, and we totally fucked our Dropbox multiple times too. It's just insane when you're sending that much information like back and forward.
And we were doing this while I had multiple releases coming out on the label. We had other gigs that we were trying to lock down. You had like AU5 in the studio.
Yeah.
There was all kinds of other shit that we were trying to do. And also we were trying to complete like solid chunks of time to work on this stuff. Like, it was really difficult to do anything unless we really set aside like solid 4 hours, if not 8 hours, to really nail these chunks. So that takes a while.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely had to put a shitload of work into it. It's fun though, worth it.
Where are you getting all your samples?
Like in
Vengeance.
the actual track making process.
Yeah, like some of the glitchy, like vocal stuff. Just like.
Oh well, actually, they just come from like my tracks, and where I get them from in my tracks is I illegally download them from just a cappella websites. And then I just cut them up, put them on here, and claim them as my own. Basically the standard shit that any electronic musician's doing these days.
I mean, everything's ripped off, right?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, even if you make it, you know, you record a kick drum, someone made that kick drum, you know.
Well,
then,
that's, I think
then
it
you
was
stole
Carl
it.
Sagan had that saying. He's like, yeah, he's like, if you want to create an apple pie, you have to create a universe first or something.
Bob Moog also said, we're all creative, it's just a matter of how open you are to the ideas of others to let them flow through you.
Exactly.
Really doesn't fucking matter where you get the sample, you know. If it's obvious kick or snare or synth sound that like every producer knows, might be a good idea to not use that, you know. But maybe it's a good idea to use that because now you have this fucking awesome traps song that's gonna hit #1, you know, because you used all the exact same sounds the frickin' Brill's used or whatever, you know. It's like fucking awesome, you know, sweet, you know.
I like to think of it as like there's being a producer and there's being an artist, and the best approach is to be able to navigate that and sometimes really express artistry and sometimes just produce the results that need to be heard, and, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's all personal as well. It's like if you can't live with yourself unless you have so much integrity in your work that you've created absolutely everything from the ground up, then obviously you need to create everything from the ground up or you're not going to be able to sleep at night. Whereas like, you know, other people obviously don't have a problem with that, and their main goal, I guess, is not to create every sound and know everything about everything in the software, but rather their goal is just to make money and fuck bitches and play shows and whatever, you know, like.
There's probably somewhere in between there.
There's definitely a middle ground as well, but it's like.
But on making money, anybody know how much the Harlem Shake made?
How much by Bauer?
Yeah, how much money he made off of that?
I'm not sure. $0?
Well, didn't he get sued because he used all those samples? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay. Well.
Yeah.
there is that.
I mean, I'm sure though, as an extension of making that tune, he got a lot of bookings, so he kind of made money off those shows, I'm sure. I mean, after he made that track, I'm sure he was selling, you know, 500 tickets a night and wherever he fucking played for a while. Yeah.
Now, where's the record? You know?
I don't know what Bauer's doing anymore.
He just produced a track with G-Dragon
Yeah, I think he's doing
MIA.
Okay. Cool.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Nice. Oh, that's cool that he's still doing stuff. Yeah. What's that?
Just wondering if you guys have ever crashed bad live, and if you have
Like-
any contingency plan for that.
The computer?
Like, have our Abletons crashed bad, or have we crashed bad?
Crashed live.
Ableton, not yet in this.
I have.
You have?
Yes. So.
Like your one crashed at one
This
of our sets?
No, so
Oh.
this computer didn't have a solid state drive in it, and I was bouncing around like a fucking hyena on my DJ set, which was feeling really awesome. And the whole DJ deck was just like totally moving, and it was just poorly constructed, and my whole laptop was just like brr, brr, brr. And I'm like, oh god, you know, and I knew I didn't have a solid state drive in it, and all of a sudden the freaking black screen of death popped up. All the audio shut down and said, you need to restart your computer right fucking now. And I'm like, damn. And then so I had my little Octopad thing, which how I play my DJ sets. And the promoter's like, you need help, man? Because there's just silence in front of like 1,000 people. And I'm like, get over here. So while I'm starting my computer, I had my sticks out, and he was holding the freaking the hype microphone on my drum pad. So I was literally making those sounds through the microphone, and everyone's like, yeah, that sounds amazing! And I was trying to restart my computer, and then the whole rest of the freaking 45 minutes or whatever, I was like going like this instead of like jumping around really hard because I didn't want my laptop to do the same thing. And so now this is the 2011 laptop, and so I looked online, and it said that 2011 laptops were having issues with the video card and all this crap. So I got a new hard drive and basically a new computer for free. It's pretty awesome. So I highly recommend that if you have a 2011 laptop.
Yeah, I think, yes, before the solid states, there was maybe more problems. But even still, I didn't really have any problems because I don't really jump around that much on stage. And I pretty much I think I've had like one issue before where my computer wouldn't start, but that was before the show, and then it started. So, and actually the problem was that it was some stupid shit where like I was trying to start my computer with every fucking USB port taken up and stuff, and it was just like, no, I don't want to start, and then I just like pulled everything out, started it, and it started, and then I plugged everything in and it was fine. But it's just like, I don't think I've ever actually had a crash like during a set, like in the middle of a set or anything. I've been pretty lucky, I think, on that front, and definitely not in like the last 5 years, or last few years at least, where there's been solid states and like really nicely built computers and stuff. Actually, there was one point in time where my laptop completely fucked out. Luckily, it was in Sydney, and I was living in Sydney at the time, so I went home and got my desktop and played a set off my desktop.
Nice. Gangster.
Yeah, and that worked fine. So.
How, with your Motu, you were saying your Motu interface, I had some historic issues with with some random audio dropouts during live sets with Motu. Have you ran into that at all?
No, I
It's been
haven't.
solid. Are you using a 828 or an ultralight? Or?
I'm using an Ultralight Mark III, yeah.
Cool, okay.
Yeah. Did you have a question?
Yeah, so I'm curious because you use so many unusual sounds. What's your sort of composition as a solo artist?
Like in,
Like
how do I play a set as a solo artist, or?
Like how do you begin constructing it for yourself? Like you work.
Like you're talking about the track writing process?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's always different. Like sometimes I'll like, write a chord progression or something and be like, oh, that's cool, and then start transposing that chord progression to a shitload of different sounds, and then just get a bunch of ideas, and just the standard sort of way you write a track, I guess. And then other times I'll have an idea for a beat, and I'll be like, okay, let's just make a cool beat, and then, that starts to spawn more ideas, or sometimes I'll find an a cappella that sounds cool and be like, oh, I got an idea. Or actually sometimes I'm not even trying to write a tune, and then I write a tune by accident because I'm like, I actually really just want to try out like some theory where like, I want to try and cut some shit up in a certain way and put it in a rack a certain way, and just macro some shit and just do something, because I have like some idea that if I do this, then it would maybe be helpful to know in the future. And then in doing that, I'm like, oh, that actually sounds pretty cool, and then that starts to spawn a track idea or something. So it's always completely different. It's like it's not a very black and white question where I can just say like, I start a track like this every single time, and that's all I'll ever do. Because yeah.
At what point did you guys quit your day jobs and just do music full time?
I've actually never had a job. Actually, no, that's not true. It's not true. That's not true. When I was in high school, I like delivered pizzas for a bit, and then that's it. And then I sold drugs for a while. But like I would never like say that I was like I never really had like an actual job.
So was that like a snowball effect where you got plugged into a festy circuit and it was just like bigger and bigger? And
No, man. Honestly, it took a really
Definitely
long time.
a snowball effect.
Yeah, it was such a snowball effect, man. Shit got real. Yeah. No, it was, I was actually super lucky, man. I had like really supportive parents who were like, yeah, you're making cool tunes, and they, I guess, in a way, like wanted to live vicariously through me, I guess, because they're like, oh yeah, we never had that opportunity, and what you're doing now is like cool and something we've never seen in our time. So they were kind of actually really supportive, let me live at their house for a long time, rent free, and fed me and shit, which was cool. So like, yeah, I was just really lucky. So I never really had to get a job. I just kind of went straight from high school and university and shit into writing music full time.
I've seen you on a lot of festival bills this summer. It's awesome.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm not playing that many this summer.
Well, some big ones.
Yeah, playing infrasound. Infrasound's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Here.
Sounds very cool.
So it took me a long freaking time to become a professional musician. I started drumming at 12 years old, and I knew that I wanted to be a drummer. And I asked like the freaking school counselor, the career counselor, you went over to the career counselor to pick your career, And I'm like, I want to play drums. They're like, oh, sweet. Well, the Army has a really nice marching band. And I'm like, marching band? Well, I don't want to be in the marching band. I want to play drum set. I want to play rock drums. They're like, well, you can play, snare drum in the marching band in the Army. I'm like, okay. Fuck you. I don't want to do that, I mean, like, what is a kid supposed to do when someone's telling them that, It's like, that's not what I want to do at all. So then there's like, oh, well, you can be a jazz drummer. You can go to Berkeley. So I got a scholarship to go to Berkeley, a full ride, actually. I didn't want to play jazz. I wanted to play rock, right? At the time, there wasn't very much rock. At the time, like drum and bass was like just kind of pretty exciting in the musician world. This was like 1996 when I graduated, so I'm 38 years old now. Computers were barely freaking invented. There was no laptops. You know, I started with beat machines, and I had this little QY70. It's about this big. It's from Yamaha, and it had everything on it. You could make a beat. You could make a sick bass line. You know, and then the 303 was already out. I think then I got like a 808, this little sampling unit and stuff. But anyways, you know, my dad was he's like a master carpenter. So at like 12 years old, I would always go work side jobs with him, and that's how I paid for my drum set, and that's how I paid for all my gear. I started growing this huge freaking collection of gear. I had full PA in my bedroom. I had monitor setups, like huge freaking Mackie wedges right by my bed. I had like 2 or 3 drum sets, and I was excited about it. You know, I had keyboards and everything, and then the more gear I acquired, I realized the less I made music. So that was one lesson that I learned. You know, you're like, you're working on your computer and you're like, I'm gonna go buy a new keyboard, right? Well, maybe the only reason why you're doing that is because you're lazy and you're not trying to finish your freaking tune that you started. So I would highly suggest just say, nope, I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna turn off the internet, and I'm gonna finish this tune. Finishing tunes was how I became a professional musician and a professional DJ. I highly recommend that as the starting point. You know, you gotta have the basis of who you are, your brand, you know, your product. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, you could just you be a builder of music, a teacher of music, a performer of music. All these there's all kinds of various things. You don't have to be just a DJ or just a producer in any one style or anything. There's so many different avenues of music that we're all learning about that we can do to create a professional career out of. So I think I was like in my mid-20s before gigs were actually finally starting to pay the bills. I was teaching drums at the time too. But through my 20s, I actually became a professional carpenter, a professional woodworker, and I was making like $45 an hour. It was really great. But I was like hating myself, slitting my wrists at work, you know, literally thinking, I think I might die. I would like to die right now. You know, if I can't do music, if I can't play drums, if I can't produce music, I would rather die. So if you really, Il Gates talks about this. He's like, what is stopping you from finishing the track? You know what's stopping you from finishing the track? You're gonna die. So you might want to try to do what the fuck you're gonna try to do before you die. And so I think that's pretty awesome. Yeah, you know, just, you know, it's easy to say just do it, but literally, it really is. You know, Nike said it best. Just
work
do
ethic
it.
is super important, man. I think, touching on that, like work ethic is definitely really important. Like, there's not a day where I don't get up and spend, you know, at least 3 or 4 hours in the studio doing something. Like, it might not be music, it could just be answering emails, or it could be, maybe I'm not writing a tune for myself, maybe I'm doing mastering for somebody or something like that. But I think it's important when you're a music producer. It can be really hard actually, like waking up every day and having the discipline to go into the studio and actually work, because you don't have a boss, you know, and you also don't have like set tasks. You basically make up what you do every day. So you wake up and you're just like, okay, I can do anything I want, including nothing. So it's really hard to, I think, get into the routine of doing that. And I think that's one of the things that allowed me to not have to get a job, because if I didn't have that sort of work ethic, I think I would have definitely not been in the position that I'm in now, like playing shows and teaching and doing all sorts of shit like that.
What's the average amount of time it takes you to write a track?
It's like a hard question to answer. It's I guess anywhere from, like, I never finish a track any faster than like 8 hours to 12 hours, and it never usually takes me longer. Well, actually, it depends. Do you mean in like from the time that I started until the time that it's finished, or do you mean total hours that I actually am working on the track?
Just start to finish.
Well, it's anywhere from like 8 hours to like 3 years.
What about duration?
Duration of time that I'm actually working on the track though, probably anywhere from 8 hours to like 48 or 72 hours that I've actually like dumped into an actual tune. Probably. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm just taking a guess, honestly. It's a hard question. Yeah. Is there any other questions?
Are there any classical composers or composers in your area that you guys like draw influence from or try to emulate when you're in the composition
Honestly,
process?
yeah, honestly, I take more inspiration from modern composers. I mean, I think like classical composers are cool and all, but they don't really inspire me that much personally. No, I say that and people are just like, oh, you're a dick. they're like, classical music is so cool. Yet then they get into their car and listen to fucking modern music. It's like, cool, bro. It's like, if it's so cool, why are you listening to this modern shit?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I draw more inspiration from stuff like, Aphex Twin and Square Pusher and like Circuit Bent and like all of this sort of crazy modern electronic production rather than like Rachmaninoff or something. So it's like, I'm not really trying to do what he's doing, so it's kind of hard for me to like connect to it in that same way.
If you have a song in your head, you just basically mess around until you get it out of your head. Someone figure it out.
Sort of. I actually, for the last like while now, I never really have a song in my head and go like, I'm gonna put this song on paper. Like usually it's just messing around, and then that eventually somehow creates a song. And like, I think a lot of producers are like that. I don't really think, because I've done a lot of collabs with a lot of people. Whenever we sit down, I'm like, the first question I ask obviously is like, oh well, do you have an idea for a tune? Like, what tempo should it be? What key should it be? They're just like, I don't know. Like, let's just start messing around and we'll see what happens. And that's generally, I find, the way that it always happens. What about you?
It's always different for me too. So yeah, I've written tracks in like a day and it's done, and I'm happy with it. And then
Never mind.
most of these tunes are some of my latest tunes that I've released. They've been sitting on my computer for like freaking 4 years, and like I'll make it in like a couple days and sound great, and I'm like but I'm like lukewarm on it. And then I'll do all this other crap and play all these shows and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, what about this tune? And then I'll listen to it after like listening to all this other new music and being inspired by all our producer friends or whatever, or freaking jingles that you hear on freaking YouTube or whatever. And then you go back to it, you're like, I think I can make that snare drum like way fucking better. And then I'll sit there and work for 8 hours on a freaking snare drum. Or like, I think the melody's cheesy now, I want to change it. Or I think I want some vocals on the tune now. Most of my tunes, they definitely take a while to develop because I know that I would like to put some sort of vocal on it or some sort of lead line. Bill's music is a little more abstract than mine. Mine's a little more, I don't know even how to describe it. But I would say that Bill's production is more involved with the like on the audio side, like glitching and fades, audio fades and things like that. It's nice doing projects like this because we learn so much from each other. But also there's plenty of producers out there who literally just sit in their freaking bedroom or their studio and just, they don't collaborate with anybody, and they're freaking geniuses, and they make the most amazing music ever. And some of them, you ask them what their influences are, and they're like, I don't even really listen to music. And there's other guys that just, they listen to so much music constantly. I have plenty of friends where you're in the car, gotta put on the freaking iPhone music. In the kitchen, gotta crank the music. And sometimes I'll go through days where I'm not even listening to any music at all. So everyone's kind of different. And each one of those individuals has just a different creative system of creating music. I think it's all relative, really, I guess. And
yeah,
I do want to say that like anything that is stopping you from freaking finishing tunes and being creative and trying to get that melody out of your head or produce that snare drum sound or that freaking awesome lead keyboard, we all go through the same shit. Everybody is in the exact same boat, and no one is any luckier than anyone else. Doesn't even matter if you're born with freaking $2 billion or born poor. I think it's literally everyone is in the same boat with making music, because yeah, you know, like someone who is growing up on the streets that creates music, everyone might really feel and connect with that person's music like way fucking more than some fucking pretentious total asshole Trump fucker, you know, who is born with a freaking totally sick laptop. I don't even know. Yeah. See, I do this shit for a living, but sometimes I can't even fucking talk right. It's just the way it is, I guess. Yeah.
If you run into something you can't figure out, do you like reach out to forums, you go on YouTube, if you need to tackle something like what we used to do?
This guy goes fucking crazy, man. Like, I'll definitely research and try to figure something out, but sometimes it'll take me like freaking an hour to try to figure out something really fucking simple, and I'm like, oh sweet, I finally figured it out. And he's like, oh man, here, let me look that up, and he'll literally find it in like 2 freaking seconds. And that was one very inspiring thing.
Yeah, you gotta get good at Google, man. Like, I think the reason why I do that is because I've done like multiple bachelor degrees and stuff, so it's like I'm used to just going like, oh, I don't know a thing, Google it. Like straight away. I think that's, yeah, definitely forums and YouTube and stuff helpful for sure. This is a session actually.
You can play it?
Yeah, I can play it. Basically, the way this came about, this is like I sat down with AU5 like a few weeks ago. I don't know if you guys know him. Yeah, so I was writing a track with him, and yeah, he came over and was like, hey, do you have an idea for a tune? And I was like, I don't have an idea, do you have an idea? And he was like, no, I also do not have an idea. So we basically like, we're just sitting there like, doing all sorts of shit. This is the final version where we've kind of like, what I usually do is like in the final version, I stem everything out. I leave all my drums separated, so all these red channels are drums. And then I stem out like all my bass and all my synths and stuff, even when I'm just writing a track, not even when I'm trying to transpose it to instruments to play live or anything. And the reason I do this is because you can, you know, this synth channel here would be like probably 30 channels. And I've just like basically rendered it down, and I'm able to just like really tightly edit everything, you know. And
when you're in MIDI, you can't really see exactly where it ends.
Yeah, you don't actually have like such a tangible release point or anything. So it's kind of nice to have stuff in audio this way. But yeah, so yeah, to answer that question from before, this track started with no ideas, but basically the premise like of the idea that it started on was kind of these sort of sounds, which sound obviously completely different now. Like all those sort of arpeggiators and stuff. It's gone through a shitload of like processes at this point, but when it first started, it was probably just that arpeggiator sound that AU5 was like, he was messing around in a synth and he started making these, you know, these arpeggiator things that sound like classic AU5 shit. And then, yeah, I was like, then I would render it all down into stems and chop it up and make a beat, which sounded like this. plugins that he made and stuff that they just don't make any fucking sense really. Yeah, and then I guess from there, if you keep going through the versions, it's kind of interesting because you kind of see like every time we decided to make like a large change, we're like, okay, let's save a new version just in case we want to come back to this version.
Were you working just on one computer?
Yeah, we're just both working on my desktop and kind of going back and forth.
So these are all audio chunks here?
Yeah, so these are just all like little chunks of audio that I've cut up and messed around with.
So Bill, it seems like you're pretty early on in the creative process. You're sampling your instrument tracks down to audio.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then you continue to regurgitate them further down into other bits, like it seems like the busing and
Totally.
summing.
So see, what I've done here is like, you know, done all of this cutting with like all these fades and shit, and then I would literally just render, like, I would be like, I can't deal with this anymore. This is too much to look at. So I'll just render all of that into like a single file.
Sure.
And then I'll have that other single file, and then I'll chop that up, it somehow makes its way into like 10 channels again, and then I like render it down again, and I just have to, keep
maybe
going.
Just in the beginning, you are working with a virtual instrument and a MIDI track, but that is only a very small fraction of the songwriting process itself.
Well, no, I had VSTs all the way up until the end. Like, you know, at the end of it, I'm like, oh, you know, that audio chopping thing sounds pretty cool, but maybe I should put some like, you know, Rhodes chords under it or something like that, you know. So it's like I definitely don't like set a limitation to myself where I'm like, I can't use VSTs after this point of the day or something.
I just, you know, I see a lot of people who are like, I think this track is done, and very few things have ever been printed to audio.
Right.
And I see there's like so much you can do working with the waveform.
You can just get like a whole new level of detail. Yeah. So I guess here is where we started like really pulling it apart and doing different things. So what have we got? Sounds fucking weird. Jesus Christ. Yeah, so I mean, I guess at this point was where everything was kind of more split and sounded like, I guess this synth, yeah, so see, this is why I don't like synths. Like, you'll go to a new computer and it'll just be not there. So I don't know, yeah, they pissed me off. Jesus Christ, I guess it's still this channel.
Epic cork.
Yeah, and then I'm missing contact as well. So it's like, yeah, this is kind of why I like to
get to audio. Yet another reason to get to audio.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess all of this chopping stuff came from that original song that I showed you that sounded nothing like the final, and then just kept.
Another quick question. So are you sketching in the session view ever? I haven't seen much clip slot grid activity. It's almost all chop ups on the arrangement view.
Right, yeah, I don't really do anything in session, in the writing process anyway. So this is kind of a cool sound actually. If we find why this is not playing.
You're messing up the flow.
Yeah, man. So this is how we made that big like resonant bass. See if I can figure out why this isn't playing. You can see output.
I love that this sound level is really nice.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's probably the high pass. No? Why is it this output? The fuck? All right. So I guess that's not the bass sound.
Bird noises and other animals.
Bass sub, is this it? Yeah, that's probably it. So I actually don't have biofilter on this computer, I guess, because that's what's making it sound like it rings out. It just sounds like that. It's literally an 808 kick that we filtered. So let's see, do I have biofilter? I do not. But yeah, there's like this comb resonance filter or something on it, and you just crank the resonance right up and it starts screaming.
Which device is that?
It's called Bifilter, and it's made by a company called Tone 2. So yeah, that was the original sound, I guess, and then if you go to the final version, you can hear that like that resonance that it's creating. But yeah, the final version is really the only version that will ever play on my laptop, just because I don't really keep a lot of plugins on my laptop. It's more on my desktop, and then that's why another reason why I like to keep it all in audio. So when I'm going from computer to computer, as long as I've collected and saved it, I have all the files there, and I can make derivatives of the work on the road. If I
Look at all the shit it's missing.
It's missing a lot of shit, yeah. But it doesn't really matter because the only thing that is probably really affecting here is the master. Yeah. So yeah, this, it's funny. We had this ongoing joke in the studio where we weren't calling drops drops, we're calling them choruses. It was like from a traditional standpoint, like that's what it is.
That was the lesson plan from last night. Was in the Ableton Thursday night group here. We talked about song structure and we tried to relate modern electronic music terminology to like traditional songwriting. And a lot of it is just jokes, you know. But
Totally.
we refer to it as like the chorus is the section where like everyone knows the words and everyone puts their hands up.
Right.
And so that's kind of like
It's like the drop.
I guess it's
Yeah.
like trying to get away from using that word drop. I guess.
Yeah. Yeah,
Chorus
so
and drop are the exact same thing, guys.
Yeah, so in this second chorus, we've just like basically done a similar thing, just printed stuff down, and then I've done like final edit and stuff. So one of the really cool things about working with 85 is that he has perfect pitch. So there's this thing on Serum where you can go into, I think I can try and find it. Well, it might be hard. I'll duplicate this channel, unfreeze one of them, and then go into the patch. Yeah, it's all initial. But you can see here the range, the Unison range. You can turn it up to like 64. And it just gets, 48, and it just gets insane to the point where like when you start turning it, it tunes all the oscillators so much that it starts to, it just turns into mush basically. But like, what we did in this tune, and something that I don't think I could have done on my own because I don't have perfect pitch like that, is we had this chord that sounds like this, and it detunes slowly over time, and then I was like, hey, Austin, what chord is that now? And he's just like, oh, that's totally like a C sharp minor or some bullshit. And then he was like, okay, so like now if we just take the vocal and like pitch it down, it's crazy, I'll show you, it's hard to explain. So it transposes into a different chord. And if we play the vocal over it, you'll see what I mean, like we just pitch the vocal at that point. Yeah, it's like really clever, but it's it was fun working with Austin on that actually because he's so good. He's got such a fucking good ear, man. It's insane.
You guys know what perfect pitch is? Perfect pitch is?
Perfect pitch. It's like you can literally play like any note on the keyboard or any like you fucking play like 10 notes at once on the keyboard and you'll hear all of them. Like you can play in like the most like complicated chords and he's just like he knows exactly what it is. It's insane, and he like it's not like he has to jump on a keyboard quickly and go like, oh, that's it. Like you just go, like play whatever notes you want. He's like, that's an E, an F sharp, a G, a fucking
That's like
D.
beyond perfect pitch.
It's ridiculous, man.
That's
It's
like
fucking
some
ridiculous.
skill.
Yeah, it's like godlike. I've never met anyone who can do that shit like him. So yeah, it was really cool writing with him, and I think it translates really well to being a producer as well because he has perfect pitch and essentially pitch is just frequency. So he can be like, oh, that snare has too much E sharp in it. And then you can like quickly figure out what frequency that is from that, you know? And just be like, yeah, I'm not really liking how that E sharp is poking out. And just like pull it back, it's fucking nuts.
Yeah. Bill, you have basically relative pitch, is that right?
I have relative pitch.
So relative pitch is basically if you start with a tone like E, you're like, and then you tell Bill, okay, it's E, and then you can play any other pitch in that scale. He could probably tell you exactly what it is.
Yeah, I can do it with intervals. Like if you play like one note and then another note, I can be like, I know the interval almost straight away. But yeah,
and it's kind of a natural thing, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like you can learn that shit. And I feel like you can learn perfect pitch as well, but I don't know how he learned it that well to the point where he can, without any other reference, just know exactly what note it is.
Well, some people go crazy because we live in a world where everything is pitch, everything is frequency, you know, so the bus drives by, it's humming by, that's a pitch. The freaking bell rings, it's a pitch. And so literally some people with perfect pitch, it literally drives them absolutely insane. So it can be the mark of the beast for some people. But I think AU5, it's obviously working to his advantage.
Yeah.
I think it would suck to have perfect pitch and you're not a musician or not a producer. You know, then you'd be like, you know what everything is, and you don't really know why, and it sucks. That'd be shitty.
Yeah, it'd suck to be having perfect pitch and then you go to the shop and like shit your pants or something. And you have to walk home with poopy pants.
Okay, guys. You guys should do a stand-up comedy routine.
Well, Bill was trying to say, he's like, we were trying to figure out what the hell we were supposed to say in between our chunks when we play live, because it's kind of like stops for a second. Yeah, it could stop, or we could immediately start the next chunk. We figured we'd, you know, introduce ourselves and tell everybody, hey, we're playing music for you, sweet. I would normally say, hey, like, what's up? Like, here's this stupid fucking question that you're not gonna answer, right? And Bill's like, hey, how about you just don't, one rule, like he said before, just don't ask the audience any questions. And so it's been really challenging and exciting to, when it comes to that point, I have the microphone, I'm like, oh, I can't ask a question, what should I say, right? So they're like, this is Mr. Bill, and I'm like, I'm this fucking idiot over here playing the drums, and they're like, okay, next chunk. You know, so bottom line is we're definitely working on our stand-up comedy through each tune and each chunk of music that we play, for sure. No question about it.
You said your set was 45 minutes, right?
No, it's like 70 minutes.
We have about 75 minutes worth of stuff. Yeah, it kind of sucks
Yeah.
though, because unless we make more chunks, we really can't play any longer than 75 minutes right now. So tonight we'll probably play all of them. We probably won't play it like in order of like 1 through 7. We usually start on like 6 and then we go like 4, and jump around and do all sorts of shit. But yeah, it's like 75 minutes roughly worth of music, and if we ever want to add to that, we really just need to go back to the studio and write more music, basically, or write more
set
chunks.
times usually like an hour 15 or an hour and a half? What do you usually
An hour 15, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It depends on how long my freaking stand-up is between each chunk, honestly.
That's also true.
Yeah.
It's like between each chunk, if KJ talks a bit and stuff, it can stretch out to like 80.
So in the set also, we have the option to loop any part that we want to, just by like freaking manually looping. You can MIDI map
That's
it
true as well, yeah.
to any part.
Yeah, we can kind of jam out a bit as well by doing that sort of stuff, which we've done at a few of the smaller shows. We haven't really actually done that at like shows where there's like, you know, 1,000 people or something, because it's a bit risky. But then, you know, the other night we played in Bend, Oregon, and it was like, it's what, like 50 people or 100 people. It's pretty small. So we just like through the whole set we're like looping bits and doing all sorts of crazy outlandish shit that we would never usually do, especially if we're playing something like Lucky, which is like what, fucking 5,000 people or something. But yeah, again, like the reason why it's only 75 minutes is just because we were really pressed on time. Like we already had a lot of bookings for this show which didn't exist yet, so we had to kind of like, we had a deadline to like make a show happen by, and we were just like, fuck it, 75 minutes is good enough. It's like a bit longer than like a festival slot is usually like an hour or something, and then we have a bit more for headlining slots. But I think, you know, eventually when we build out more chunks, we have like 300 minutes worth of music or something, you know, it can be really interesting then on what we play from night to night. Yeah, so and it's pretty cool. Like it's really easy to jump around. Like, you know, now I'm at chunk 7, now I'm at chunk 4, now I'm at chunk 2, now I'm at chunk 3. You know, I can just like jump through the set with like QWERTY keyboard really quick. So
One thing is that we've both always been in arrangement view, and so that was kind of easy for us to collaborate.
Yeah, like that. Is that the Destroyed set?
Yeah, I'll briefly just talk about this.
Yeah.
So this is kind of how, when we started Destroyed, I really went deep into live creations. So this is like 65 minutes worth of music. There's at least 65 songs in here. Here's all the stems, really similar to what Bill and I did, except there's a lot more of them that aren't stemmed out, consolidated into one, like vocals, guitar, synths, backing, tracks of various things, risers, effects, lead synths, drum stuff that I'm not gonna do. This track is the exact drum part that I try to play. That's muted, and if something catastrophic goes wrong with my whole kit, then I have a pad that I just press, and there's the backing track pops on. Because it'd be a lot better to freaking have that than nothing. Then you try to freaking suss freaking something out on stage, and all the ravers are going, "What happened to the beat? Sucks. Destroyed sucks. Because the fucking computer crashed. They suck." So basically, I wanted to get separate outputs to give to our front house guy with kick, snare, hats, toms, sub, mid basses, guitars, and all kinds of stuff. So we basically give them 8. At the time, we're using Motu. Now Motu makes a 16 out, but then just a few years ago, they had only 8 out. So we were okay. We have 8 outputs to give to the front house guy. But actually, we use the headphone out to create 9. So we also have to have a freaking SMPTE track, which sucks up an entire freaking audio output. But anyways, it's kicks, snares, hats, and toms. And the way I built the racks is it's like an 8x8, but actually I extended it to 12. So it was 64 tracks, and then I added it beyond. So here is like just 2 kick drums. So this is the entire kit right here as far as like MIDI mapping, and the only places that the kicks live are right here. And so that's why they're only right here. So in the snare drum rack, in rack 1, this is only where the snare drums lie. And right here would be the kick drum, but this is the snare rack, so it's empty. And same thing with the hi-hats. So it's kind of really deep. Here's all the hi-hats, and then here's all the cymbals. And then right here is where the toms live, and they're all exactly the same. And some of these are empty because some songs don't have like toms, or maybe I'm using the same set of toms for other tunes. That's one way how we got to be able to play 64 tunes in one set with a CPU at 3%. We had a crazy interesting way. So Excision and Downlink have MIDI instruments that we call them basses because they're the freaking bass masterminds. So they both wanted to play the bass lines, really nothing else. And they're really not really musicians necessarily. They're producers. You know, they can't freaking go off on a keyboard, or Downlink plays a little bit of bass, but you know, he played it when he was a kid. And plus, these machines that we made, they're called Ztars, and you know, it's just like hitting buttons. It's literally like you're like going like that. So it's really, you have to figure out how to play it at like an instrument. And at the beginning, he was like, you know, it's not doing anything. When I hit it, like it's late. And then I go over there, I'm like, no, it's fine, because I programmed the whole thing to their liking. You know, I'm like, how do you want it to feel? What do you want to play? I literally like built the entire instrument for them to make them really easy, because we're in these huge freaking costumes, square costumes on stage. They have gloves on. It's really hard, and huge boots. It's really hard to freaking do anything musical. So I made a kind of crazy MIDI thing through simplers and samplers. But then this new thing that we've done is we've created 8 chunks of bass. And so at any moment in time, we can make like a VIP of the tune. So all these chunks are just like one hit that's been looped. I think I'll just.
I thought that was this is really cool actually. It's really interesting how this works. I can almost explain how it works actually, even though it's not my question. So basically there's like 8 channels where, like you said, there's 8 channels of bass, and at any given time, depending on what they're pressing on their guitars, depends on which channel it's playing. So it's like, you can see, go back to the other session, the other view. Yeah, you can see how all the volumes are turned down on all those channels. Basically, like, you know, if they hit one button, it turns that channel up, and no other channel, and then they play another button.
Yeah.
And it's just
When
so
they're playing notes, they're just
they're unmuting and muting
Yeah.
tracks, basically. Yeah, it's kind of fucking clever.
So in Pendulum, Rob has a Ztar as well, and he's a really amazing keyboard player. And he literally plays every single freaking note with all the lead lines and all the bass lines and everything. and it took him fucking forever to figure out all the programming and stuff. And he's definitely like my favorite mastermind freaking producer and musician because of what he's been able to recreate. He in Pendulum, he's literally playing the actual massive patch with like a plug-in chain freaking a mile long. And then it switches every time he's playing the lead line back to the verse or whatever. But with Destroyed, it's only audio. And so basically this whole thing right here, this whole group of audio is basically their instrument, is what it really comes down to. So right here, this is the backing track. So that's what the track sounds like. So here's one VIP that they could do. So they can play that, or they can just continue to freaking hit that. So there's another VIP thing that they can do. Because they wanted it to be perfect. They didn't want to sit there and say, if I don't hit it at the right beat, or if I hit the wrong note, it's going to sound like shit. They're like, I want it to sound awesome every time. So that's where I was talking about a freaking 2-year-old. You know, I set it up for a freaking 2-year-old to play, honestly. But it's great because if they don't touch anything, no audio happens. So they actually are playing it live. And whether it be a keyboard connected to a soft synth or a keyboard connected to a piece of audio, it's all the same shit. It's an actual instrument. You know,
it's like
a
action-reaction thing.
Action-reaction. Yeah, I'm doing something, therefore I'm creating noise, you know? So there's something else that they can do. That's the same thing. Oh yeah, this is basically octave related. So on this one they have, I don't know, 6 different ones that they could choose. So it's really fun for them. And then they can cut each other off too. They're virtually playing the same thing, and then they're cutting each other off back and forth. So they're jamming together. And we have little microphones inside our helmets saying, no, fuck you, I'm gonna play that part. No, I'm gonna play that part, you know? While I'm playing the drums and I'm going, yeah, blah, 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 yeah, blah, blah. They're like, I can't hear, KJ, you're singing the beat too loud. I'm like, fuck you, dude. You know, and then we're like, oh, the sub's not working. We're like, why the fuck isn't the sub working? And like, literally the entire show, we're just screaming at each other when all you see is this. And we're like, oh, fuck. It's a really fun project. But literally we're doing every freaking thing live. It's pretty cool. But we're doing it in a very interesting and unique way.
That's fucking dope.
We're about out of time. Any more questions?
I heard those suits were $1 million a piece, is that right?
There weren't $1 million piece. There were $1 million for all 3.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's minus that. Yeah, that's a lot less than $3 million.
So it's still a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, we went feet first into the project. Jeff Excision was like, got this crazy idea with Downlink. We want to create bass music live, and I'm like, that's what I fucking do, you know, duh. Like, what's new? He's like, no, we want to create, you know, our style of insane head banging freaking dubstep live. And I'm like, oh, like not like Pendulum, okay, you know? And he's like, we want to dress up in robot suits and do it too. And I'm like, oh, like Guar, you know? And he's like, yeah, I guess we'd be the EDM Guar. I'm like, we're the EDM Guar. I'm like, well, he's like, it can either look really stupid and we'll be freaking made fun of forever, or we can dive as deep as we can go and make it really fucking sick with fucking lasers shooting off our freaking armor pieces, which we have. We have low-line fog on our boots. He has a CO2 blaster on his arm. We have freaking like GoPro things, so we can record the whole set. We can talk to each other. We were completely wireless at the beginning, and then it was way too heavy. It's like this freaking huge turtle shell on our back. And after every show, we're like, oh my God, it sucks. Still to this day, though, those two guys, they're like, this sucks after every show. I'm like, this is fucking great. I love it. I'm sitting on a seat.
You should.
I've been playing drums forever, so it really doesn't fucking matter.
You should talk about how you couldn't move, so you like setting up samples that just hit the hi-hat twice and shit.
Yeah, so there's lots of samples where I'll hit it, and it'll go chugga, chugga. So I'll play once, And what if I play eighth notes, it'll play 16th notes. So it'll go chugga 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 like that. So it's a really interesting way to create double time things. Especially because I have gloves on and I've never played in a group with gloves. I have all this freaking armor on. I can only raise my arm like this high. I'm like, hey, everyone's cheering. I'm like, hey, yeah. Totally sucks, but it's really fun, you know. And like, I guess that's why. It is what it is, really, you know. And yeah, we definitely had to sink some freaking shit ton of money, which we're still paying off, into the project. But we decided to just do kind of like festivals and stuff. You know, it's like we're all three really, really busy with all of our projects. So, I mean, aren't we all? So, but I'm sure the project is gonna continue on forever and ever.
Is this project you two are up to going to continue on for some time?
I'm down to keep doing it, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have much fun doing like DJ sets on my fucking laptop, really. And I'd prefer to keep trying to explore the live aspect of playing electronic music, because I think we're like in a pretty exciting time where we're like literally just at the start of like a long line of people who are going to start playing electronic music live on controllers. It's already happening, but I feel like it's going to get more and more insane. Like people are going to start doing what me and KJ are doing, and what Destroyed is doing, and what Pendulum is doing. You know, it's kind of like in the 50s when like maybe rock just started to spawn a little bit or something, or in the 60s or whenever that shit's happened.
You know when swing turned into bebop? Do you remember that? Well, of course, none of us remember that, right? But literally, it's like da 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 da. You know, like sitting down, and then all of a sudden. Bebop started, and people started swinging, and all of a sudden people started getting up in the freaking clubs and started dancing, and that was what I kind of considered like the drum and bass movement, like in 2002.
Do you think that happened because of technological advancements though, or do you think that happened because people just got sick of swing?
People got sick of just sitting there on their freaking ass for music, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. So I think this is another wave. When I started, when I was 18. That was when live drum and bass was really kicking off, you know, people playing live electronic music. And then the huge DJ wave came, we're still in the massive DJ wave. And I think Bill and I are starting to see an increase in live electronic music for sure. It's fun, you know? Yeah, like I do DJ sets, but I have my controller and stuff, and it's not nearly as fun as playing the kit. And with Pendulum and Destroyed, it's pretty rigid stuff. Like I play the exact parts to songs. But with Bill and I, I'm kind of back to a project where we can improvise a lot in it, and we can play something, and then the next night play something totally different, and it still sounds really cool. And that's something that's really exciting with just being a musician overall, is being able to improvise for sure.
A little more like real music in that sense.
Yeah.
Even though you're working out the arrangement view, it's still really liquid.
Right. It's like the way I explain it to people who don't know. The way I explain it to people who don't really know much about Ableton and stuff is that we have absolutely no control over what track we play when, but we have almost all the control over how we play them. You know, so it's like like a DJ is like the opposite. They have complete control of what track they play when. They have no control over how they play the actual track itself.
Cool.
So we're kind of like flipping the whole thing.
Nice. Yeah, I hope to see more people following in your guys' footsteps, and we'll keep innovating new ways and contributing to the movement. It's definitely real.
Definitely, yeah. All right, well, we got to go.
Cool.
But yeah,
we'll see you all there tonight. What club are we playing?
Studio B.
It's called Studio B, actually. It's inside the Skyway Theater.
Info@slamacademy.com.